Okay, so thank you for the introduction. I'm Ben Farmer. As just been introduced, I'm the Deputy Director of the May Smarter Innovation Challenge at Innovate UK. That's a £300 million programme for the development and novel application of industrial digital technologies into UK manufacturing. I'm also co-founder of Atherton Bikes. If you want to talk about that, there's one of the examples of that slide. So that's one for after this discussion. One of the things we've funded at Innovate UK through the challenge is what's called a Network Plus. It's a group of academics who are studying elements around the social sciences, and for us that's around manufacturing, and it's called Interact. So have a look at the Interact website, and they've got a particular theme in there called the future of work, which seemed really relevant to the discussion this evening, obviously. And they have some main findings. Those are that people really still value manufacturing, but it's often not visible. It's not obvious when things are actually about manufacturing. Some of the images of manufacturing can be off-putting, and that's something we need to address. And that links to the high quality of jobs in manufacturing really matters, and that's come across through from the discussions this evening already. The future of manufacturing and digital manufacturing looks really bright, but we do need to be careful of some of the potential risks. So de-skilling and job destruction are those things that we do spend time worrying about and working to avoid. And then finally, attracting future talent means being good with people and doing the right things with people, and that's come across through this evening really well. So you'll see and hear those findings coming through some of the discussion that we're going to have this evening. We're going to structure it around why you might be interested to work in manufacturing, what is manufacturing, and how is it changing, and then finally, how do you get involved in manufacturing? And I think we'll draw together a lot of the points that we've been hearing about this evening in this discussion. We're going to spend about 20 minutes in this first part of the discussion. Then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. So please do think about any questions you may have, and a couple of microphones will be roving around so that we can all join in. And then I'll just come back to the panel just at the end to wrap up. So I'm now going to turn to the panel. Some of these speakers we've already heard from today, but some haven't. So just if you have already spoken, please remind us who you are and who you're associated with. But if not, maybe spend a bit of time explaining about your organisation. So, please.
Yes, so as I spoke earlier, so I'm Alexia Williams, work at Rolls-Royce, ex-apprentice, now a 3Life technical lead.
Hi, I'm Holly Stokes. I'm the Head of Early Careers at Airbus in Filton. You've just heard some great examples from two of our apprentices and one of the Early Careers managers in my team, Simon. And I do hope that you all know who Airbus is. So I shouldn't need to explain what we do down in Filton and up in our Broughton branch as well as globally. So pleasure to be here.
I'm Ash. Obviously, you just heard me talking a little bit about GTEM and my career. So, I'm the production and factory manager at GTEM.
Hello, I'm Alex Ballister. I'm Head of Engineering at the Centre for Modelling and Simulation. We do a lot of high-performance compute and basically using modern simulation computing mathematical techniques to develop new stuff, basically, some of which is manufacturing and a lot of stuff isn't.
Thank you very much. So we're just going to kick things off by going to the question of why would people be interested in a career in manufacturing? And essentially, I'll kick things off. It's essential to our everyday life. Even the chair we're sitting on right now has been made somewhere. But it's more than that. And it's really fundamental. And it's about making things. Making things are really useful. They add value. They can also save people's lives. There's all sorts of really powerful things. So I just want to open it up, and I'm looking for a brave volunteer to go first. Why are people interested in making things?
I'll take that one. I think it's because it's practical. It's gaining a different understanding and a different appreciation of how things work. Not everything is engineered for a good purpose. Some things are engineered for bad purposes. Understanding how they're developed. Manufacturing in the UK especially is ever growing, ever developing. There's some really interesting people on the panel here today that are working in industries that I wouldn't have a clue about, but something I'd like to have a look at. And that keen interest in different areas is what sculpts manufacturing and what brings people into our world, So I think that's quite an important bit.
I mean, it's just so vast. You know, manufacturing, I think a few people have touched on the images of manufacturing, and we just heard about the myths that, you know, it's not dirty, it's not in a workshop, you're not wearing a hard hat, wearing overalls. Manufacturing is anything and everything to do with making or producing something, and it's moving more and more. I know we'll come on to the skills, but more and more into the digital kind of solutions and automotive solutions, but you will always need humans in manufacturing.
You know, some of the work I'm involved in recently, we're working on our inputs into the spending review that's happening at the moment, and it's really big as well. Manufacturing is 10% of the economy, as you measure directly, but about a third of the economy indirectly, and it employs a huge number of people with really highly paid jobs, and they all do really important work. They're producing things that help pay for the services in our economy. They're producing things which keep us safe and well, and they're doing things which the things we currently make are less impactful on the environment, but we're also making products, and we've heard about some of the products from Airbus perhaps today, which are less impactful on the environment. So there's a lot of really good reason and purpose why people should and are interested in working in the areas that we do. So I've mentioned it already, but some of the research that we funded has shown that people don't associate everyday items with things which are actually manufacturing activities. So I'd like to ask the panel, what advice would you give to students, teachers and parents who may not view manufacturing as exciting or a viable career option? How can we change the perceptions?
Come to events like this.
Yeah.
I think to add to that, I think go look at some of the stuff that's made and how it's made. Like, take, for example, one of my favorite examples is how do you make semiconductors? And if you go and look at some of the technology that companies like ASML use, where they have ultra insanely precise lasers that essentially hit tiny drops of molten metal to form lenses that they can then focus lasers on the fly to be able to produce the semiconductors, is just, it's absolutely insane. I think, you know, a lot of people think of manufacturing very much as, you know, you might be making planes, you might be making cars, you might be making sort of high volume stuff. But if you look at a lot of the really interesting high precision manufacturing stuff, look at, for example, the fusion world and some of the absolutely insane material science they're trying to get to work, to get the modern fusion reactors to work, it's just insane. And I think really, if you want to go and understand what manufacturing can do, go look at really the modern cutting edge technologies that are out there. You know, we've got great examples here of Airbus. We've got manufacturing like companies like GTEM who are doing all these things that you might seem very everyday and basic, but are actually really, really challenging and require a huge amount of skill and knowledge from the people who develop and execute them to actually do it. It's not, you know, I think somebody was making a point earlier that it's no longer, you know, sort of this dirty, getting your hands dirty, a lot of manual stuff. An awful lot of modern manufacturing is highly skilled, highly digital, highly automated, and it's a really interesting different skill set to where it perhaps was 30, 40, 50 years ago that's now being needed in the workforce to execute these types of workflows.
Okay, so I think you've touched upon already the next question I had, which is looking really about what is manufacturing and how it is changing. There are some really big global megatrends which are changing manufacturing really very rapidly. I'm interested to know what you see those changes being and what's driving them, and how young people can prepare for the opportunities that will result of those changes.
Yeah, so I think one of the things I'm sort of seeing, even in the 6 years that I've been there, is a lot of that automation, that sort of digital side coming in. And I think something as young people coming in, and I'm sort of starting to experience, actually is, okay, you might no longer be doing the hands-on part of it. The robot might be doing it, but you're still required to do what if the robot suddenly breaks or stops working, or you need to still have that problem solving, still have those engineering skills to fix a machine that's doing maybe all the automation that normally a human would be doing, but learning it and learning the coding behind it, and still being able to understand the fundamental engineering and the fundamental things that go into manufacturing a product, even if you're no longer the one using your hands to do it yourself.
I think it's also important to note about, we touched on from some other speakers around AI and things like that are ever evolving. Technology that learns itself is really important, especially if we look at the automotive industry, for example, where you're producing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cars per day, per day through the industry. and you've got people running lines making those hundreds and hundreds of thousands of parts per day, mistakes happen, things don't always go wrong, and that's where engineers become apparent and useful. And at the same time, that's where AI sort of kicks in, because it then starts learning those trends and learning the actual things that lead to those issues, and we can start engineering the solutions to those individual problems.
What about Alex? We were talking before about there's a huge opportunity in AI, but there's also some patterns that have emerged from previous generations of technology, and perhaps where the limits of AI future are.
I think manufacturing is, or just the world in general, is very interesting when it comes to AI. So for those who don't know, the organisation I work for, CFMS, we're a research technology organisation. We're basically a commercial R&D consultancy, which means I basically only work on stuff that doesn't exist yet. So that might be, for example, one project I'm currently working on is designing a factory that's 300 metres long, 170 metres wide, and about 60 metres tall. I'm also working on stuff where one single manufacture of a component costs £1 million and takes 4 weeks. And in these novel processes, the data just doesn't exist. I think I'll reflect back to the Babcock talk from Peter earlier, where he was talking about, in the defence space, the volume of data and people analysing it. In the world I work in, there is no data because the product doesn't exist. So AI has certainly got a place where it will automate tasks where there is a lot of information exists already or things that are repetitive. But for developing new stuff, it's fundamentally useless because the data doesn't exist to train it on. So there will always be a role for people to do the new stuff, to push the cutting edge. And I think what we'll see is it's a bit like when Microsoft Excel came to the forefront in accounting. We didn't suddenly lose accountants. It just meant that accountants did slightly different work. They moved on to the higher value stuff. They still did more. They were able to be more productive. And that really, for me, is what AI is. It's a productivity tool that will enable people more to focus on the harder challenges. And for me, that's quite exciting because it means that I get to constantly work on new stuff that doesn't exist yet. And that for me, I find, fascinating. And personally, it's great fun.
Okay, so as much as I could talk about AI all we're going to move on, I think, to another... it is more important, which is how the panel sees the role of sustainability growing in the industry and what opportunities this creates for young talent.
I can start on that one. Obviously, sustainability has been mentioned a few times this evening, and it's a huge topic and something that needs to become a part of everyday kind of learning and curriculum as things evolve for pupils as they look to come into the workplace. The decarbonisation of kind of aviation is a massive topic along the sustainability side, and so for us it's going to be a key skill. Yes, we need digitalisation, we need AI to support us on our journey to this, but fundamentally to support decarbonisation, we need to focus on new fuel energies, new source energies to power our aircraft, and so we will need students and apprentices and graduates of the future to come with us with that alternative fuel knowledge. And this, again, is something that you can't teach AI without a human behind that doing the research into it and understanding how different fuel sources work. But in terms of from that kind of level of sustainability, but it's also about good working practices. Sustainability isn't just about greenwashing and decarbonisation. It's about the sustainability of an organisation, which also comes from its human practices, its human resources, its working life. And I think you heard some really good examples. I have to say it again from our apprentices about the supportive network that they have at Airbus. So that is also part of a sustainability framework. We have to be mindful it's not just all about the green element side of things.
I'd imagine that all of your firms have specific roles now for sustainability, and actually made me think, I used to be at Airbus a while ago now. One of my colleagues there, Alessandra Bedino, she was physics, she's now head of sustainability.
She is indeed, yes.
It's amazing, and just shows the kind of winding path that careers can take to go from technical area actually into sustainability, but often people are going the other direction as well. So I'm sure that's the same at Rolls-Royce and GTEM as well. So I'm going to move us down to the third section of our discussion, which is about how there are roles for everyone in manufacturing, but how do we find them? So we talked about a skill shortage today. That remains the case. It's been there for a long time, but it's consistently the thing that manufacturers report is the the main driving factors that holds back their businesses. And that applies to the STEM subjects, but also other areas as well. And we've heard today all the range of examples of roles in manufacturing. It's also interesting how people arrive there. And I wonder if you could share a story of someone who has taken a non-traditional path into manufacturing and succeeded. And Ash, you had one you wanted to share something.
Yeah. It was one based around a young lady that actually started working in our production department she started with me as a little bit of summer work where she finished her studies. It wasn't actually too sure what she wanted to do past that point, so wanted to earn a bit of money, and I think the parents were pushing for a bit of rent. So she came to work for us on our production line. She then displayed really, really good skills that she didn't actually know she had in terms of problem solving and engineering. That led her on to a little bit of a thought as to what she wanted from her career. So upon taking some advice from myself, some careers advisors in GTEM and our HR team, she then decided to take an apprenticeship with us. And I'd say she's probably one of our best maintenance engineers in the factory.
So my follow-up question is what can we learn from this? I know, Ollie, you already had an instant reaction to that, so I invite you to share. What can we learn from that story?
I think it was when we were talking about just to not be afraid and to take a risk and to give things a go. I mean, when you asked us the question outside, I was thinking, I can't really think of one, because I don't think of myself within manufacturing, because I'm in HR, but I work for one of the biggest manufacturing companies in the world, technically. I did 3 years of hair and beauty at college when I left school. And I walked out of that college door and I never picked up a hairbrush or a pair of scissors until COVID. It's the only time my hairdressing skills came into any use. My kids were pleased to not have awful haircuts during COVID. And I did an apprenticeship in business administration. That's how I found my way here. So don't be afraid. I think a few people have said it. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to change the choice or change the avenue that you think you wanted to go down. Just take that risk, because the opportunities are really there for you to take.
Thank you so much. I've got some really important questions, but I've got an eye on the time, so we'll see how the audience Q&A goes, and we may come back to those. So I'm going to go to one which I think is probably one of the key ones for today. And we've touched upon them just now, actually what you just said, Ollie, which is, with so many different routes into the workplace, there are apprenticeships, degrees and technical certifications. How can people choose the best path for them? And we've heard some great examples this evening, but I'm sure, we can't scratch the surface for all the different perspectives we have of people in the audience. So I'm just interested in the panel here to expand upon the points of how do we choose when we're at that point in our careers, and when choosing a career, what do we do?
I'll take this one. I think there is no right choice, and I don't think there's any sort of wrong choice. All of them will get you to where you should end up and where you ideally will want to be going. I think it's just a case of the individual and what you enjoy doing, whether that's more in the workplace, whether that's you want to get stuck straight in, start working on products, and you know the sort of things you enjoy working on. And I think if you're someone that knows you want to go down a manufacturing route but not too sure exactly what you want to work on or what industry of manufacturing you want to go in, maybe that's where the university route is better, because you have such a wider view, and from there you can try and do different internships and then go into a grad scheme. But again, if you know exactly where you want to go, and then that's maybe where the apprenticeship route is a better one, because you can go straight into aerospace industry, or you can go straight into sort of an automotive industry, or into the software and AI. It's very much up to the individual of what you want to do, and if you know what you want to do.
Wow.
I think it's also important that you attend as many things like this as possible. Open days are quite commonplace now across most manufacturing businesses. If there are any, just even if it's not a business that you really are interested in, just go see it. Go see the environment, go see what it is that they do, go see how it is that they could potentially benefit you. These events, even such as today, they're super important to get some real life examples of people who have been through it and we're not stood up here lying. We're here to try and encourage people. We're trying to encourage the next generation of engineers. So go to these events, go to the open days, and just take positives and negatives from all of them.
I think for me, I come back to Hardy's kind of summary of take a risk. I found that it's really important sometimes to go and do something you're not familiar with and a place that's a bit uncomfortable. And you learn so much so quickly, and after you've been there for a while, it's time to freshen up and do something new. And that's now something that's part of many, many careers. To people have multiple careers, these decisions you make now, not set in stone forever. You can change your path, but it's really important to be brave at those points. There's a famous person who's sometimes a bit divisive, now for a while passed away, but Steve Jobs is famously quoted on the lines of saying that it's really important to follow your passions and really think about things which are important to you and how you can make a dent in the world in those areas. But it's also really hard to look into the future and see the dots already joined. You only see the joined dots looking back again. So sometimes you just have to just take that leap and do something with your heart in your mouth, and it will be all right. Okay, so we're just about on time now to move to the audience. And so obviously we've got the panelists you've heard from today, but don't forget as well there are other people you've heard from which will be in the auditorium. So we've got 10 minutes now for the questions. It's like right t-shirt. His arm went up. So we're just here to take our first question.
Press the button. Hello.
Yes, it's working.
Thank you. This has been absolutely fantastic. You mentioned the skills shortage. What skills are you missing, and what vacancies are the hardest to fill?
I will happily field this one. For me, where I work, what the hardest skills we have are people who aren't just good at answering exams. We've interviewed PhD students, people coming out of PhDs, we've interviewed graduates, we've interviewed people coming out of A-levels, and they are phenomenally good at answering questions to which they already know the answers. And then as soon as you move them out of their comfort zone, they will often collapse. And it is really hard to find, and we struggle, and we still have lots of vacancies open, good people who are able to take what they learn and actually be able to take a step back and understand where they can apply it somewhere else. And that's at all levels, where it's people coming from GCSEs, A-levels, T-levels, undergraduate degrees, postgraduate degrees, PhDs, across the whole spectrum. I'm personally, from interviewing a wide range of people, seeing a big trend of people who are really, really good at answering questions to which they know the answer, and then they come into my world where the answers do not exist by definition and then can't cope. And that, I think, is something that I would really encourage people to think about, is don't just look at the stuff you're learning as you will go and apply exactly that, because odds are you won't, but take that as a basis from which you will then go and learn more stuff and go and apply it to new places. So start thinking about, I need people who can look at a problem, abstract it, and then go and apply it somewhere else, not just take the same thing and rinse and repeat it. And I say that, in general, is the biggest skill shortage that I face.
Yeah.
Holly,
I was going to say, if I can add to that from an Airbus point of view, because, yes, traditionally we're a manufacturing company, but surprisingly some of the skills that we miss today are in the digitalisation area, and particularly cybersecurity, which is, again, something you might not think typically lends itself to an aircraft manufacturer. But as the increase in data is there and on the open market, so is the increase in threat that we receive from, espionage, and let's face it, that is out there. So we need to have those skills to protect our data as we become, more reliant on AI and things like that. So think that, companies don't just want the traditional manufacturing skills. We do need, more digitalisation and AI skills, as even from an Airbus point of view. So.
Okay, I'll invite some more questions with hands up, and just while I ask for if the microphone could come down here, the lady in the black top and the patterned trousers. And now, just to go back to the gentleman just very briefly, have a look at the Make UK website, they survey their membership and publish the answers to your question in the exacting detail of where their memberships are really short on particular types of roles and skills.
This is specifically for you, but you said your career is literally to predict the future and like plan for the future. What are your strategies for when you're problem solving for things that don't exist yet? Like, do you have a set sort of list that you go through?
I don't think we've got time to go through that in enough detail to talk about that for days. No, so we take some interesting approaches where we try and abstract and generalize things that we've learned already, working with customers to understand what they actually want versus what they say they want. And then there are sets of techniques that we use to basically prototype and rapidly iterate through essentially processes. There are various in-house and external tools we use to do this. It's a lot of programming, a lot of maths, a lot of iteration. We kind of have a running joke internally, or at least I do, and I hope people who work for me share it, that we only ever work on broken stuff, because as soon as it works, we automate it and move on. So we really heavily use automation. So where I work, we have basically, in the politest way possible, an enormous computer. And my view is that I don't want to be handcrafting models to execute. I'd rather write a programming script to generate the models, let them go run for 2 weeks, and I'll just drink coffee. It's more fun for me, if I'm being honest. So there are lots of techniques we use to allow us to understand. It really comes down to uncertainty in processes and the impacts of making certain design choices and that sort of thing, to understand how things that don't exist will work. And that's essentially, in a nutshell, it. I mean, come ask me more. I can imagine I could talk about it for days.
It's a great question, thank you. Any others?
Yeah, and thank you very much. It's been a great evening for myself and my granddaughter. One of the questions I've got for the panel is, do your company still have work experience days? They were a great thing in the past for giving people visibility, to show what you can actually do. Do you still do those? How do you get onto them?
Yeah, speaking on behalf of GTEM, yeah, we find it still completely valuable, and we encourage as many people through as many age ranges as possible to come and have a work experience with us. I'm quite an advocate for taking summer placements also. So young people who don't know what they want to do, come September, they can come work in a factory environment as long as they're over 16, and they can work with us and actually gain some experience and just an understanding of what manufacturing is like in the UK. So yeah, work experience and that of summer placements is really, really important to us.
I'll just add to that, as these people work for companies who employ like multiple thousands of people. I work for a company who have 40, not 40,000, 40. As a really small SME, yes, we do. We promote it on our website. I will say from experience of having worked with them for other SMEs, a lot of them just don't advertise. And I think people, and certainly, students won't realise the amount of effort it actually takes to put an advert on a website for an SME to say that you run a work experience. So a lot of them will do it, but you just have to ask. So my best advice would be, if there's a company who don't advertise it, just send an email. There will always be an info at or a careers at. We'll find an email address and just ask the question. And odds are they probably will. They just don't have the time and the resources to actively promote it and try and go through a big process like perhaps some of the large organisations to my right here do. But just ask, because most probably will. They just, if you ask, basically. And I think from our point of view, we often use this actually as kind of an ad hoc way of triaging people who are really interested, because if somebody is coming to you and explicitly asking you, do you do it, it shows they've got real interest and passion in it, which shows that they're keen and they want to do it. So that's quite a good way for us also finding candidates who want to do it. So yeah, I would absolutely say go and just ask, because what's the worst that can happen? You're going to get an email saying, no, sorry. Like, nothing venture, nothing gained.
I'd say, if I've just got time to add that, from an Airbus point of view, we've chosen a slightly different strategy at the moment with our work experience. It's all fully virtual and online, and it's a 2-week course which is available through a company called SpringPod, and it's available 365 days of the year for students to undertake up until the age of 18. It kind of really came around in COVID, where we couldn't have people on site and we were not on site ourselves. But as a result, we saw that actually from a diversity point of view, it was really, really good, because having people on site for work experience is fantastic. Unfortunately, you would find that it was somebody's son or somebody, my uncle's friend's dog, whoever wants to come and do some work experience, and quite often it was about who you knew to come on to site and do the work experience. So actually by offering an online one, we can ensure that we, offer that experience to people all over the country from all kinds of different backgrounds. So all they need is a laptop to be able to connect and do that experience. Will we have them on site again? Who knows? Something that Simon works on, it's part of his role, is the STEM outreach and the work experience. So it is something that we'll look to explore for the future, but right now we've got our fully virtual online experience, so anyone can do that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's coming from the Rolls-Royce selector.
Yeah, I am. So actually our work experience is currently being redeveloped, is being redone in the Bristol site. We do still offer fixed weeks, so across the year, so at different points when we take on any students. There is a bit of an application process on the website, but it's currently being looked into about how we do it, because we want to make the week as best for the student as possible and get them sort of the biggest experience of the company. And since COVID, we've struggled to have enough people within the sort of company that's willing to give up their whole day to support a student. So that's something we're still developing.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm afraid that we've run out of time for the audience now, but we're obviously still here for a bit afterwards. Very, very quickly, one piece of advice to students considering a career in manufacturing down the line.
Something for me is have a look on the IFATE website. On there, there's all the apprenticeship standards that exist in the whole of the UK. If you think something's interesting, type it in, see if there's a standard that exists for that. If there is a standard, have a look on and you can see which companies have helped make that standard, and it's a sort of a tip into finding a company to apply to that will do that apprenticeship.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So I think we've said it a couple of times already, is take that risk. But I think the biggest piece of advice is make sure it's something you enjoy. If you want this to be a career for life, which it can be, you've got to enjoy it, is the first thing.
Yeah, reiterate those points for sure. For me, it would be grab the opportunities, as I said in my speech before. Grab any opportunity that you can, no matter if it's apprenticeship and or work experience and or any experience or knowledge gain. It'll set you up for an early career and a good career within manufacturing.
Mine would be, don't be afraid if you don't know what you want to do. I still don't really know what I want to do, but I currently really enjoy what I do. And along that line, just keep your options open. I mean, I'll encourage you all to continue maths for as long as you can, because whether you go into manufacturing, you go into engineering, you go into anything, maths is such a core skill. Similarly for like other subjects, like perhaps physics, chemistry, biology, the sciences, but don't be afraid. If you don't know, nobody really does, I don't think. Or those who do are lucky, I'd say. And just go with what you enjoy.
On that note, hands together for this amazing panel. Thank you very much.